Good morning. I talked in one of my previous videos about our wicking beds and how wonderful they are for especially the dry season to keep our plants going. They're especially good for figs, but we also plant pineapples in them. We have some tomatoes and herbs in some others, and I'm going to show you in this video how to make them. So before we get started, I want to go over the tools that you will need in order to do this project. You're going to need a drill. You'll need drill bits, a 5/8 inch and a 1/2 inch drill bit. You'll need a jigsaw for cutting the material. You could use a chalk line or just a Sharpie, a tape measure, and a pipe cutting tool. That leads me to the materials. You're going to need obviously a 55-gallon drum. You need some 4-inch corrugated or flexible drain piping, some landscaping cloth, weed barrier cloth, and then you need some PVC pipe. This is a 3/4 inch PVC pipe. You can get the stuff that is low pressure. That'll be easier to cut. It's thinner, and you won't need, it's not going to have pressure because this is just like the fill tube so that you can get the water all the way down to the bottom of the wicking pot rather than having it sit on top. The other materials that I have, this is a fitting for the 3/4 inch fill pipe, and then it has a hose on the hose adapter on the other end, and then I have a quick connect piece in here for the hose because I have a quick connect on my hose. That way it just goes right on here, and then this can go right to each one of my wicking pots on the fill tubes to get them filled up really quickly. So that works really nice. A quick call out to my friend Tommy. He's the one that kind of turned us on to these wicking beds. They work fantastic. And he made some modifications from the YouTuber that he saw this from. And we've made some additional modifications since learning about how to make them from him. So this is going to be kind of the, I don't know, version 3 or whatever. All right, so we just need to get our measurements on our 55-gallon drum. And these are 3 feet tall. So we're going to want to cut it directly in half. So I'm just going to measure 1.5 feet up on here and make several marks. If my tape will just stay. So 1 foot, 6 inches. So I'm just going to make several marks going around here. All right, so we got all of our marks all the way around, and now we're using a chalk line and have it all lined up on our marks. It takes 2 people sometimes to do that, and then we just are snapping it all the way around so that we get our line. And so now we should have at least a little bit of a line. Yep, looks good, going all the way around. So now we will drill our starter hole and get her cut. And I'm going to use a 1/2 inch bit, like I said, for the starter hole, just so that it's big enough to get that blade of the jigsaw in here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's not exactly perfect all the way around, that's fine. All right. So now we have things for 2 grow beds, wicking pots. Now this side, because it's got these pieces, you can still use this for a wicking bed, but you're going to want to tighten these down, and then I would recommend doing some silicone caulk around them on the bottom and then also on the inside, just to kind of seal that off. You don't want them leaking everything out of your wicking bed through those holes. So we're going to set this aside. We'll have to clean that up and get that siliconed before we do that one, but we'll build this one here because it's pretty much ready to go. I do take some sandpaper just to kind of get any sharp edges off and clean this up a little bit. That way you're not cutting yourself on this edge. You can use sandpaper, you can use a file, whatever works for you. But I do both the inside and the outside. I might also mention that these are food grade barrels. I will have a link in the description for all of the materials so that you can purchase those from Amazon. On the barrels, you can get them from Amazon, but they're kind of expensive. And while I will put the link, I would recommend looking for them on maybe Facebook Marketplace to get a better price on them. But just make sure the one key thing is that you want it to be food grade. You don't want them to have had chemicals in them because that could potentially leach into your plants, and you'd be eating it if you're growing things that you're eating, or it could kill your plants as well. So food grade is important. All right, so now we've got our two halves and we're ready to start prepping it further. We do need to add a weep hole, and that is going to allow the water, once it reaches the certain level, it'll start coming out that weep hole, and you'll know that, okay, now it's got as much water in as I need it to have. You don't want to have all of the soil just be completely drenched. It becomes a swamp then, and it's not conducive to plants growing other than, I don't know, swamp plants. But so that is kind of your indicator for when you have filled enough water into it. Okay, so we're going to mark our weep hole, and we're going to mark it on the inside because we want that to be account for the bottom being up a little bit off the ground. And this is a 4-inch pipe, so we want our weep hole to be at 3 inches so that the soil will, or the water level will be just under where these pipes are going to be in the bottom of this. I'll mark 3 inches on the inside, and I'm going to drill it then from the inside because we got plenty of room here. So, and again, I'm using a 5/8, right? A 3/8. I'm using a 3/8 inch bit, and just drill right there on the hole. And that's good for that. All right, so now we just got to measure our corrugated drain pipe, or our flexible drain pipe, to be in the bottom. So let me get this pulled apart, and then we'll be able to start getting our measurements and get those cut. Now basically what you're doing is you're just going to push this down into the bottom because you want it to be all the way around. It's going to be 2 circles. You're going to have one on the outside, and then you will have one on the inside. So I'm just going to kind of get an approximate measurement right here, and then we're going to cut that. It's unruly when you've got such a big length of tube right now, but all right. And let me just cut this with the, all right. So that's my first length. So that should fit in there nicely. Excellent. And now I just got to figure out my second length. But I think I'm going to cut it right here. And that should give me enough. I might have to cut some more off of that. Okay, so we got our second piece cut. And that fits nicely in there. So that fills the bottom of the wicking bed. And what this does is it holds the dirt above where the water level is going to be, and that way it can slowly wick up into the dirt and not just create a big swampy mess in the bottom. Now, in order to keep the tubes from filling up with dirt, we need to use that weed barrier cloth, and that's what we're going to do next. We're going to put that on the ends of these tubes. We have to cut that into squares that'll just fit over these tubes. So let me get those cut, and then I'll show you how to put them on. All right, so getting the last piece is cut here. So now we've got our squares that'll fit over the ends of those pipes, and they are roughly 10-inch squares in order to give you enough to fit over the ends of those pipes. All right, one of the pieces or materials that I forgot to mention earlier is the zip ties. You will need zip ties in order to get these cloth pieces secured on the ends of those pipes, and the ones that I have are kind of short, so I'm going to have to use multiple zip ties in order to get them all the way around. So I'm going to get a couple of these put together real quick, and then we are going to put the cloth on the pipes. So then you're just going to fit this around the end of the pipe here, and then the zip ties can fit right inside that little groove, and that'll hold these together nicely. Good. And then I'm just going to trim the end of that zip tie off of there so it's not sticking out. And we're going to do that on all the ends of here, and then these will be all prepped. All right, so we got the ends covered with that weed barrier cloth. That will let the water go in and out of these tubes, but keep the soil out of them. So let me get these back in place. All right, so those fit snugly. Actually, I'm gonna turn them because I want the ends to be kind of where in the same location as the weep hole, and that's also where we're going to have our fill pipe. Now our fill pipe, we want it to stick up above the edge of the wicking bed by about an inch or so. So we want it to be at least 19 inches. So I'm just going to roughly measure 19 inches. It's right there, and this thing is so dirty I can just mark it on the dirt. And now when I'm cutting it, I want to cut it so it's at an angle. That way, as I'm trying to fill, the pipe won't go all the way down to the bottom and touch the bottom, and it will slow the fill process. So the angle will keep the tip of it will keep it up off the bottom and allow the water to fill without causing it to back up in the pipe and make it more difficult to fill. So then this is going to just sit right in here like that, and we are ready to fill this with soil, and then we will be able to use it as a growing bed. I will share with you the soil mixture on my next video when I fill one of these wicking beds and we plant some more plants in them. So stay tuned for that video. I hope you learned something in this video, and we will see you next time.